He was a young man that vanished in the dead of night, and while his disappearance would remain unsolved for over a year, it would eventually turn into a story of betrayal. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. Today we're looking at the case of Stephen McAfee, a creative student who disappeared, leaving his community on the knife's edge. Today's case came in via one of Stephen McAfee's friends, and as soon as I started reading into it, I knew it was one that I wanted to share. And just a quick one, if you're new to this channel, I post both solved and unsolved cases here on a weekly basis, so if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing to Coffeehouse Crime. So pull up a seat, grab a coffee and sit back. This is the case of Stephen McAfee. The Great Lakes, Wolverines, and the beginning of the automotive industry. These are among the many things used to describe Michigan, which is where our story today begins. A once booming economy in the early 1900s, with thanks to Ford and various other car manufacturers, Michigan is now a key state to the automotive and agricultural industries, and currently boasts a population of around 10 million people. Stephen McAfee was a local resident in the area, and he was born on the 26th of December 1996 to his mother Suzanne and father Mike. Stephen grew up in Macomb Township, a civil township located within Metro Detroit, Michigan. Macomb Township is located 15 miles northeast of Detroit, but despite its close proximity to Motor City, it boasts a much lower violent crime rate of only 1 per 100,000 residents per year. This is much different to Detroit, which is over 20. Macomb Township, known for its rural farmland and range of golf courses, is a safe community with an outdoor vibe, nestled right by the edge of Lake Michigan. And this was one of many reasons that made Macomb Township a great place for Stephen to grow up, along with his older brother Jonathan and older sister Kate. Stephen attended Ebeling Elementary School as a kid. It was shortly into his attendance at Ebeling Elementary that signs of Asperger's syndrome started to show. And while Stephen was eventually and formally diagnosed with Asperger's, he wouldn't let it define him. He stayed in his education as he grew older, and in 2014 started attending Arts Academy in the Woods, a school intended to accelerate students that are creatively gifted. For Stephen, he went into this school because it offered a curriculum that pursued his interests. He was an innovative artist, loved playing the drums, and he had dreams to become a musician. Stephen was also a remarkably docile young man. While loved in the community, he was known to not stir up any fuss or cause any drama with another person. He was described as kind-hearted, non-violent, and simply existed to spend time with his friends. The date was the 9th of March 2016. It was a Wednesday, and for Stephen it was like every other. He had no special events planned. Later in that day, he sent his ex-girlfriend Tara a Snapchat message, with an image of him goofing around with the shopping carts at his local grocery store. Shortly after, he went home for dinner before he relaxed on the sofa, watching TV and scrolling through his phone late into the night. His mother Susan had been at work all day, and so at around midnight she decided to head to bed. It was around 2:30 in the morning that his father Michael also decided to call it quits, and so Michael said goodnight to Stephen. Stephen said goodnight back, but he was planning on staying up longer, and this was quite a normal thing for Stephen to do as well. With nothing out of the ordinary, Michael headed to bed. The next morning though, as Susan woke up for the day and walked past her youngest son's bedroom, Stephen was nowhere to be seen. She was sure that Stephen had no plans this early in the day. He'd left all of the gear that he'd usually take with him at home too. His phone charger still in the bedroom. In fact, he already had plans with Susan later that day. Stephen couldn't yet drive, and so that afternoon, he and Suzanne were planning on going out and practicing his driving around the local streets. This means that if he had left the property that night, he would have had to do it by foot. And, unlike usual, he hadn't left any messages behind either, which was odd. And when she tried to call his mobile phone, nothing. It's as if in the dead of night, without warning or reason, Stephen just simply vanished. Over a dozen phone calls were made to Stephen's mobile that day. As before, they would go straight to voicemail. No fresh sets of clothes were missing from Stephen's wardrobe either, suggesting he'd intended to be home relatively soon. Friends and family of Stephen started checking the local neighbourhoods and parks too, places that he often frequently visited, but still, no dice. No additional information came out from his friends or family either. The last time that Stephen had been seen on social media was from that Snapchat message the day before, and the last reliable sighting of Stephen was from his own father Michael at 2:30 back at his property. On the 13th of March 2016, 3 days later, a missing persons report was filed, and while this officially spurred law enforcement into searching for the young man, nothing would come to light. Local Crime Stoppers eventually offered a reward of several $1,000s to anyone who could provide information that led to finding Stephen, and several billboards around the surrounding area were erected. Friends close to Stephen also scoured the wooded area around Stephen's home for any clues or signs, but just like the rest, the impromptu search revealed nothing whatsoever. And when the family hired a private investigator, that too came back fruitless. It was around this time that several theories around Stephen's disappearance started to crop up. One of the leading theories was that Stephen could have found himself in an abandoned drug house, also known as a bando, and consequently he could have been murdered there, his still body in one of the many abandoned houses around Detroit. Although Detroit was once a manufacturing powerhouse in the early to mid-1900s, technology over the decades started to evolve, leading to changes in the way cars amongst other mechanical objects were created. And with the coming of the global recession in the late 2000s, the number of people buying cars in the US plummeted. This had a profound impact on Detroit. Tens of thousands of workers were laid off in the following years, and as a result many people moved away, relocating across country or around the state of Michigan. In consequence, Detroit now has an unbelievable amount of abandoned buildings and burned out homes. A lot of these which often serve as an ad hoc safe house for criminals. The theory that Stephen fell victim inside one of these bandos, though, was considered extremely unlikely by close friends and family. Not only was Stephen apprehensive to any sort of criminal behaviour, but he also couldn't drive, and therefore couldn't get very far. It was, however, the best lead that anyone not close to Stephen had. To put it simply, his disappearance was originally considered a case of being in the wrong place, at the wrong time. And this theory is where the case would stand for quite a while, because despite the unrelenting torment that his family would have to suffer for over the next year, the case went cold. That would be until April 2017. It was on April the 26th that a young woman, along with her father, walked into Macomb County's sheriff's office. There, she told investigators that a friend of hers had shared a very dark secret with her. One that hadn't been spoken about with anyone else. The secret came from Yvette MacDonald, and what she had shared with her friend only 1 month prior is that she had helped her ex-boyfriend move and dispose of a body about a year ago. Stephen was a friendly and forgiving man, and with that he forged a lot of positive encounters with people, making a lot of friends too. We're stopping on this one though. Yvette confided to a friend that one morning in April 2016, her ex-boyfriend asked her how she'd feel if Stephen McAfee was dead. She responded with saying that she would miss him, and that's when he replied with, "He already is." He took her down to the local woods later that morning. The woods were located somewhere along 34 Mile Road and Van Dyke Avenue, located within Bruce Township. Yvette's boyfriend was called Andrew Fiacco. Andrew Fiacco was the same age as Stephen, and he lived close by in Ray Township. In fact, he was one of Stephen's best friends. The two had met in kindergarten at the age of 5 back in Ebeling Elementary in Macomb Township. The two both had special needs. Andrew lived with high-functioning autism, while Stephen had emotional issues. Together, the two had a lot of fun, and boys being boys, also got into a lot of mischief as kids. When Andrew and Yvette arrived at the wooded destination, Andrew then told her that this was the area that he had shot and killed Stephen a month prior, and the reason that he wanted to tell her is because he required assistance to move the body. And surprisingly, she complied. No questions asked, no attempts to inform the police, no hesitation. The two left that area and returned 1 month later to properly dispose of Stephen. Macomb County Police were extremely alarmed to hear of the news from Yvette's friend, and they didn't hold around either. It was late that afternoon that Yvette was arrested, and only a few hours after that Andrew was arrested too. Police took Andrew into custody, and almost straight away, he confessed to murdering Stephen McAfee.
What do you think we want to talk about? Is it about Stephen? Okay. Well, that night when he FaceTimed me, it was for, he liked to smoke pot. I picked him up at his house, down the street. So, when I sold him the pot, I took my brother's gun with me. And so we drove over to the 34 mile. Okay, go on. So, we got out of the car. I gave him the bag, but he wasn't giving me the money. So I was kind of like, wait, what's going on? And so then he attacked me, and then we started wrestling it out. He grabbed the gun, pointed at me. So I distracted him, ran up to him and took it, and we were wrestling on the ground, and the gun went off, and he got hit with it.
According to Andrew, killing Stephen was through self-defence. Early in the morning of March the 10th, after Stephen's father had headed to bed, he was picked up by Andrew, where they then headed to a remote area. This was so Stephen could buy marijuana off Andrew, but apparently after they arrived, and Andrew handed him the bag, Stephen supposedly attacked him. The two wrestled on the floor, and as they did, Andrew managed to pull his gun out of his pocket before accidentally shooting Stephen in the stomach. In a panic, Andrew finished him off, before taking Stephen's mobile phone and fleeing the area. He then drove 18 miles to 34 Mile and Chona Road before dumping Stephen's mobile phone in a local dumpster. Later that day, the sheriff's investigators searched two locations of interest. One was the vacant plot of land in Bruce Township, and the other was Fiacco's home in Ray Township. Evidence and remains were located at both locations, and Stephen would then eventually lead investigators to the exact spot himself. Stephen's lower jaw and clothing were eventually found. This included his jacket and a baseball hat. It was from Stephen's lower jawbone that positive identification was made. It was around this time that through Andrew's and Yvette's confessions and through the multiple crime scenes that investigators were slowly piecing the rest of the story together. Andrew and Yvette arrived to Stephen's location with an axe, one that had come from Andrew's house. When they got there, they removed Stephen's lower legs and his head. The legs were placed in a duffel bag and buried away in a separate location from Stephen's head, and sadly, the rest of Stephen's body would never be found. Both burials were 2 feet deep. Andrew and Yvette had placed cement above the bones to prevent them from being dug up. The duffel bag was then later burned. As more details emerged on the case, the charges listed against Andrew and Yvette would grow. Actually, it was noted that in 2016, Andrew had been interviewed twice by investigators on his friend's disappearance. Both times, though, he denied any participation or knowledge. You know, it was quite alarming for investigators, and now for us to learn how deceptive Andrew actually was. On the day that Stephen disappeared, he had told his family that he had no idea where Stephen had gone to. He even planted messages on Facebook telling everyone how much he missed Stephen. In one of those posts he said,
"I wish I knew where he was. I would have told authorities already. He had a problem with checking in with his parents or anyone including me. He was very quiet and kept to himself a lot actually. I'd give him fatherly lectures about how he needs to check in with his parents before he goes somewhere or does something, or if he went from one place to the next that he needed to let them know when he was going and when he arrived. Never did he do any of those things though. I miss him so much. Please come home, brother. We all miss you very much."
Following all this, Andrew Fiacco, who was 19 years at the time, was finally charged. He was charged with first-degree murder, disinterment and mutilation of a dead body, lying to a police officer, and felony firearms violations. Yvette MacDonald, who was then 18, was also charged with accessory after the fact to a felony, disinterment and mutilation of a dead body, and lying to a police officer. Andrew was denied bail, where Yvette's bail was set at $20,000. This was so she could continue her senior year at Macomb Community College. The two eventually stood trial in 2019, but throughout the process, several twists to the story would come undone. The first piece of evidence that came to light was from the medical examiner. Although Andrew claimed that he had shot Stephen in self-defence, medical reports would say otherwise. First, they indicated that Stephen had been shot twice in the head, one in the front, one in the back, and the third shot was in the stomach. But due to the angles in which Stephen had been shot, it was very unlikely that it had happened during a scrappy fight on the ground, thus revoking Andrew's claims. The claim was also very far from how Stephen was perceived by others. It didn't fit his gentle behaviour at all. The prosecution also contended that Andrew had taken Stephen's earbuds, cell phone and watch as trophies after killing him, which proved premeditation and also suggested a motive. And the trial often heated up at times throughout the weeks too, with accusations mounting not only at Stephen's mental health but Andrew's. It was also here that allegations of Andrew growing jealous of Stephen talking to his girlfriend also cropped up. And it was even alleged that Andrew had previously sexually assaulted Stephen. Yvette even shared to police that she was told by a boyfriend that he was part of the mafia, and this was the reason that he had to kill Stephen. The trial even at one point forced the prosecutor and the defence lead into a full-on shouting match.
What are you playing with? This is like amateur hour?
This is not closing.
You know what? I'm telling you, you can't have those comments here. You make comments about this trial. You have prejudiced this jury so many times. I don't want to hear. Listen to the judge.
But eventually the jury had made a conclusion. They deliberated for 11 hours over 2 days, but on February the 7th, 2019, they'd come back with a verdict. They found Andrew Fiacco guilty of second-degree murder, believing that he had intentionally killed Stephen and that the murder was not justified. But they also believed that it was not premeditated. Following the verdict, he was sentenced to 50 to 70 years in prison. Yvette MacDonald was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 3 years of probation after pleading guilty to mutilation of a body as well as being an accessory. Despite the short sentence, in trial it was stated that she was frightened of Andrew and that there were past violent issues between the two. As the sentence was passed, Judge Jennifer Faunce said to Andrew in front of a packed courtroom, "You destroyed not only Stephen's life, his family and friends, you destroyed your family's life as well as your own. And then for 13 months you let everyone wallow in fear and distress, with hope in there as well, which I almost think is the worst part. You continued to lie. You continued to the crimes, you continued to hide, continued to leave everyone distraught. You brought Yvette MacDonald into it, and you destroyed another family in the process." Although the sentence was a very long one for second-degree murder, Stephen McAfee's family were both disappointed and distraught. They are happy that Andrew is going to be behind bars for a very long period of time, but they believed that the first-degree murder charges were more appropriate. And I don't blame them. To me at least, this case looks nothing short of first degree. It looks clear-cut that on the fateful morning of the 10th of March 2016, Andrew called Stephen to set up a meeting time, drove out fully armed, took Stephen to a remote location, and when the time was right, took his life. And a potential motive was there. In fact, several were, so why second degree? Before his sentencing, Andrew told the court that he missed Stephen, someone he said he considered to be a friend and one that he looked up to in many ways. He shared, "I have nightmares. I take full responsibility. Stephen was... I miss him so much. I am so sorry." And now the rest of the community misses Stephen too. Stephen was a bright light in the community of Macomb Township. A young man that never had a bad thing to say about anyone. He was docile, friendly, nurturing and caring. A talented artist, a musician, and more importantly, a good friend. Taken away too soon by one of his, someone he placed his trust and security in time and time again. Stephen's mother, father, brother and sister are a testament to a good family, by the way. It was very clear through trial footage and other media how much support, love and care they gave Stephen, not just after he passed away but more importantly before too. I also observed how much of a fun, loving and creative person Stephen really was, and just through researching this case, I feel like he's left a small imprint on my life too. Thank you for watching another video by Coffeehouse Crime today, and thank you to Stephen's friend who wishes to remain anonymous for suggesting this case. What do you think about the case of Stephen McAfee? And do you think Andrew Fiacco should have received first-degree murder charges? Please share your thoughts below. Thank you again for watching folks, and as always, I'll be right here behind this camera waiting for you in the next one. Until then though, look after each other. Goodbye.